May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. It is a detail of St. John's Gospel that he almost always addresses his readers, his hearers, us, in the plural form. These are texts written down, but to be read aloud in the church's liturgy, to have a living, breathing life beyond the printed black and white words on paper. Of course, they offer endless resources for personal reading and spiritual insight, but the original context of all of the Gospels was not for us to sit down in a private study and to read them alone, but the original context was, of course, that they would always be enacted by being read aloud in the liturgy of the church. That is why there's a kind of a sort of a hierarchy. The first reading that we have, normally from the Hebrew Scriptures, but during this time of year, during Eastertide, from the Acts of the Apostles. Then we have a psalm, and in older liturgies, the chants of these got gradually more complex. Then we'd have an epistle, set tone for the epistle, and then finally we'd have an Alleluia verse sung, as we did by Jean this morning. I think it was you, wasn't it? Yes. And we process to the midst of the people of God, and just as Christ stood and taught his disciples, so we all turn and face the gospel. It's as if the words, the actions, the instruction is being given afresh. And that is the context in which so many parts of the gospel are read. They are, for those of you who are literary critics and know all about this kind of thing, performative text. They make real what they say. This wonderful kind of discussion over the hermeneutics and the way that this works, because of course it can't just work if there's only one person reading and no one listening. We participate by listening. We are engaged in the text, immersed in the text, if you like. These ancient texts were originally written down to keep the church united as the body of Christ. So Christ says in St. John's Gospel the 7 I am sayings. There are a great many other I am bits and pieces, but there are 7 famous I am sayings. And today we have I am the door of the sheep. St. John was writing to a number of communities both in Palestine and way beyond Palestine. And it may be that some Christians moved beyond Palestine because of conflict with Jewish authorities. And there is an underlying tension throughout St. John's Gospel between Jewish and Christian communities, sometimes to our profound, deep, and scandalous shame as Christians. We have used phrases like hoi Judaoi, which are variously translated as the Jews, the Judeans, that kind of thing, to be extremely pejorative to people of the Jewish community. For that, we apologize for 2,000 years of utterly prejudiced anti-Semitism. But the I am sayings in St. John's Gospel are simply stated and perhaps quite easily grasped initially at quite a basic level. They are at the same time invitations into a deeply complex, lifelong relationship with Christ the Logos and his community of followers. This means that the Good Shepherd, who is famously depicted as loving, there's in your order of service on about page 8, I think, a picture, a modern picture, alas, of a Good Shepherd with the cuddly, lovely little lamb over his shoulders, and that's the image I grew up with in Sunday school. Is it page 8? It is page 8. Good, thank you. That's an image that I grew up with in Sunday school, and I love it. It's really good. But it came as a terrible shock when I heard Desmond Tutu preach on this subject. And he said, of course, it's not the lovely, cuddly little lamb who has wandered off and gone astray. It's actually the bad-tempered, grumpy, grouchy old ram that has gone wandering off into the wilderness, very, stubborn. That's the one that Christ, the Good Shepherd, has to go out and bring back. Of course, we have no grumpy old rams in this congregation, saving for the rector. I'm trying to edit this because we're so far into the liturgy. It's 11:15, so I'm leaving out chunks of the sermon to try and catch up. St. John's Gospel has been very aptly described as a book in which a child can wade and also in which an elephant can swim. It's a very good description of the fourth Gospel. And in the fourth Gospel, Christ's identity shapes ours as well. He is a strange kind of shepherd. Let's move beyond the familiarity of the Sunday school depiction of Christ the Good Shepherd and see some of the other implications. Christ warns about thieves and bandits, and then he elaborates on their failings. They speak with an unfamiliar voice, he says. They come only to steal and to kill and to destroy. But recognizing the voice of the Good Shepherd takes in us training, as it were, to be attentive, to pay attention, to heed the voice, to be immersed in the sacramental life of the Church and her liturgy, and to heed one another, whether we like it or not. Since Christ is the Good Shepherd, then discipleship means being sheep who find our life and our well-being in his care, nurtured within the flock and fold sacramentally, spiritually, and in just action and truthfulness and caring for others. This is quite difficult for us in the West to comprehend. We live and have lived in a culture that is so individualistic. It all began with Descartes. It was his fault, really, for saying, je pense, donc je suis. I think, therefore I am. That's actually utterly wrong. You just need to read Mr. Wittgenstein on that to get another perspective. But we live in a terribly individualistic consumerist society. We are taught to go get, to achieve. Oh my goodness, if only you knew some of the hoops that I have seen parents try to get their kids to jump through to get into good schools in Beverly Hills and other places. It's terrifying, isn't it? Poor Elizabeth and James. The hoops that people are made to jump through because we live in such a competitive, individualistic society. I Am the Good Shepherd speaks a very different language. It talks about responsibility. It talks about community, being part of the flock. Actually, it's somewhat revolutionary. It's somewhat antithetical to that heady, hedonistic individualism with which we are brought up. Christ, the Good Shepherd, means that we not only heed his voice, but we heed and care and love one another. And not just, the person sitting behind you or next to you. We're a family, a flock already here, but also the other, the marginalized. So for God's sake, when 200 schoolgirls are taken like that in Nigeria, that has profound implications for our prayers, for the way we lead our lives, for speaking out against such horror. The LGBT communities in Uganda and Nigeria are also examples, and that courageous, brave friend of this parish, Bishop Christopher Senyoyo and Canon Albert Ogle, and their Center for Reconciliation in Kampala, they are an integral part of the flock, of the sheepfold, of you and me. There's good reason why St. John addresses in the plural form every time Christ speaks. It is because we are intrinsically part of one another. My good actually depends on your good. My well-being depends on your well-being. Never, ever mistreat the dignity of a human being by calling names, by bullying, by being prejudiced. We are all made in God's image, and it is our duty to see that image in every single individual in our world. In the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.